afternoon. It's Roger Glenn with Poss Realty. This is the second in our series of videos really talking about some best practices, tips, if you will, for real estate. I'm a realtor in Northeast Georgia, Rabun County specifically. And so most of what we do is unique to Rabun County, or I at least add some level of customization to Rabun County, but generally applicable to real estate in general, regardless of where you are. Today I'm going to talk about some things that sellers commonly do. Could be first time, just given their relative level of inexperience, if you will. But it's really applicable to all sellers in many cases. But first, I want to talk about a couple things. Certainly this is a seller's market in the sense that demand is very high and supply is relatively low. And the simple dynamics of that have been very good for sellers. But in addition to that, one of the reasons that the market is so strong, in fact, for sellers is because it's still a relatively good market for buyers. Why? Interest rates are historically low. And in addition to that, there's something of a paradigm shift going on in corporate America where workers are no longer required to live in large urban areas and report to offices, but sort of with the proliferation of remote work, a lot of people are now able to live in rural, suburban areas that they weren't able to live in previously, where the cost of living is, generally speaking, lower. So it's still a good time in terms of cost of money or what a consumer can get from a buyer standpoint to find something. It's not easy to find something, but they can find something. I think the combination of those two things is what is making this market sort of historically strong for sellers. So if you're in the market to sell, you've got a home, and for whatever set of reasons you want to downsize, it's a great time, obviously, to do that. It's a lifestyle change for a senior, something like that, or it's a change in professional life, you want to move, or you find yourself in the position that I just talked about, in which you want to live in a different area that you're now able to do because your employer's allowing you to remote work or whatever the circumstance is. Obviously, the first decision that you have to make, and 89% of people, according to the National Association of Realtors, choose to work with a real estate professional. Now, you don't have to work with a real estate professional, just like you don't have to go to court with an attorney. Or in certain cases, you don't have to consult with a doctor. But as my friend General Armstrong at U.S. Central Command used to say, good luck with that. Most people find that working with a credible professional will help them net more. Sometimes the logic is, well, I'm just going to eliminate the real estate professional. I'm going to save myself X percent, whatever percentage that individual and their brokerage charges. Right? Why would I pay that? Well, because in the final analysis, the likelihood is that you're going to get significantly less than your property is worth. So, just like going to court without an attorney, you may save on legal fees, but you might not get the ruling or the outcome. And the cost of failure, the loss, is higher than what it is to pay a professional. Real estate's a very complex industry. It requires a lot of technical knowledge, a lot of people skills, someone that understands marketing in terms of selling your house. We're going to talk about some of those things. But if you have questions, certainly challenge your real estate professional and ask them, how is it that you are providing value for what I am paying? And if they can't answer that question to your satisfaction, I'd suggest you probably talk to other people who in fact can. A real estate professional should be able to help you get the top dollar based upon the use of your property to the widest section of market, and they're sort of aggregating demand. Again, if you think about just fundamental economics, they're helping aggregate demand. So beyond that fundamental decision you have to make, let's say that you decide to go with a realtor. So things to think about. I'm going to throw something that's been talked about recently that I think makes a lot of sense for sellers to consider, and that is going ahead and paying for an inspection on your home and your property in advance of it going on the market. There are many reasons that I think it makes sense to consider this. You're obviously being proactive. For your benefit, you're identifying any repairs that need to be done on the property, or even if it's a material defect, you are aware of it. You can provide that immediately to someone that's looking at your property, and they have assurance that you've already had a professional take a look at it. And so they don't have to pay for the cost of it. But it also should speed up the time frame from contract to close, because normally the due diligence process causes people a lot of angst. The seller's kind of apprehensive while the buyer is having an inspection done, and there's some back and forth. The buyer can obviously request repairs that are found, et cetera, et cetera. This takes a lot of the mystery out of it, and I think helps to create a more transparent environment, which fosters trust. And I'm going to talk about trust a little bit more lately. Renovation. Should I renovate or should I not renovate? Well, anyone that gives you an absolute answer probably hasn't taken the time to sit down with you and talk about those renovations and kind of the cost-benefit analysis. By investing X, what does it mean in terms of the marketability of my property? Does the time that it will take to do those things affect me based upon when I need to actually move, if I've got a timeline or other events that are sort of driving me? And so you have to think through that. Generally speaking, the nicer the home, the more attractive it's going to be to buyers, and the more likely they are to want your home. However, if you pick out a certain shade of green carpet and they don't like, or a different color of this or that, or you put money into something that's rather unique, it may be that the buyer doesn't like that. And so in some cases, you just have to carefully consider and market the property in such a way that if there are things that need to be updated or renovated, you disclose that up front, and cash allowances or allowances in the price are certainly one way to kind of address that. Offers. You get the house on the market, you've done the work that you need to, the home hits the market, someone comes in and sees it, you're excited, it's a great offer, it's day one. Should you take that offer? It depends. However, generally speaking, you want to give enough time for as many prospective buyers as possible to actually see your property, consider it, and then make a competitive offer on it. In this market, it's very ubiquitous to find multiple offers. So should you take the first one? Probably not, because the likelihood that it's the best offer is not high. Should you be rushed by a buyer? Probably not. If you have a marketable home, you to some degree are in a position to kind of dictate the timeline. Evaluating those offers. This is another area that people don't necessarily think about when they talk about the fiduciary responsibilities of a realtor or a real estate agent and the value that they can deliver. Not all offers are alike. There are multiple components of an offer that you carefully have to consider. Price is obviously one of them, but there are other issues: due diligence, the number of contingencies, the flexibility, where you have risk. Are you taking your property off the market for all intents and purposes on a risky kind of offer just because it's the highest price? These are all things that a realtor will help you with in the process, and it's critical that you have that level of consultation that's out there for you. Do you understand the financial consequences of selling your home? Some people will sell a home and then call their accountant and say, I sold my house. What's the significance or the impact of that? Or they sell their house and they don't realize they have to pay capital gains tax. Or they realize there's a land covenant or something. You have to be mindful of those things in advance. A real estate agent will help you and refer you to the appropriate professionals if necessary, so that you can identify some of the consequences of selling your home in advance, because obviously that should be part of your calculus as it relates to what you're going to net from the sale. Marketing. Marketing is one of the keys in terms of selling your home. And this is not just things that are rather simplistic in terms of staging and the cleanliness of the home and pictures and virtual tours, which can be very important, especially if you don't have the ability to get all prospective buyers to see the property in a period of time. A virtual tour can be very helpful, but it also is about putting into words, putting into pictures, putting into videos, things that attract people to come see your home in the first place. And when they are there, helps them visualize themselves living in the home in a manner that's ideal. If you imagine pure marketing, the concept is to create awareness with a target market that is sort of your what they call sweet spot demographic. So try to envision the type of buyer that's going to be most attracted to your property, and then your real estate agent will work with you to market it. That's why they may ask you a lot of questions. They want to understand the best things about your house and why other people would want to live there, so they can tell that story. They can create some of that sizzle to get people in the door and have a vision for what their lifestyle could be in this particular property. And it's not just the home. A place like Rabun County, it's a lot about what God has provided us around us. But it's certainly schools, it's healthcare, it's businesses, it's restaurants. It's all those things that kind of go into quality of life. And you want to sell that to the broadest group of people possible. Full disclosure. I know a lot of folks struggle and they say, oh, I really don't want to tell them about this or that. Well, that's illegal. If there are material faults or deficiencies in the property, you actually are compelled to disclose those, and you should disclose those to your real estate professional. This is part of what you should talk about in terms of necessary repairs. I am not an attorney, obviously, but there can be significant legal and financial consequences if there's something wrong with the home that you don't disclose. So treat your realtor like you would an attorney and tell them everything so that they understand precisely what you're dealing with, and they will help you, again, to get the best possible outcome. And last but not least, this is kind of a common mistake, typically, again, for more inexperienced sellers, is when there is a showing, you generally want to be invisible, also known as not home. Most buyers want to be able to see your property and enjoy privacy to make comments. Sometimes they'll say things that they probably shouldn't, but regardless of what they're talking about, they want to have privacy. They want to be able to look at it. They want to stare. They want to evaluate. They want to talk to a spouse, a partner, kids, friends, whomever it is they may be consulting with. And having you there, frankly, just impedes on that privacy. The likelihood is they're going to rush through their home because they don't feel comfortable because you're there. So if your realtor asks you to leave, please leave for showings. It's generally not helpful. If the buyer's agent and the buyers need assistance in terms of a showing, given the complexity of a property, let's say there's a lot of acreage or a lot of structures on the property, or it's a custom home and it's a lot for a buyer's agent, a real estate agent working on behalf of the buyer, to sort of learn, absorb, and then be able to share with his or her clients, then perhaps your real estate agent attends the showing and they can add the value, but a customer is going to feel more comfortable than they are being in the presence, again, of the owner and the seller, which is kind of, again, someone they don't want to share and disclose information with about how much they do or don't like the property and those sort of things. We'll talk in the future about some common mistakes that buyers make. I appreciate your time. And as always, I hope you're finding these videos educational and informative. If you have a topic that you want to talk about, don't hesitate to get in touch with me and let me know. And we can certainly talk about just about anything that you want to talk about related to real estate or how wonderful Rabun County, Georgia is. We'll see you next time.